The next question says, the non-discriminating pure monopolist must decrease price on all units of a production sold in order to sell more units. This explains why, one, there are barriers to entry in pure monopolies. Two, a monopoly has a perfectly elastic demand curve. Three, marginal revenue is less than average revenue. Four, total revenue are greater than total costs at the profit maximizing level of output. So let's quickly draw out the monopoly demand curve, or monopoly firms curve, so that we can see what this looks like. So unlike in the regular market, we've got two downward sloping curves here. We've got our demand curve and we have our marginal revenue curve. And the significance of this is really that the profit maximizing point is still, if we assume supply is equal to marginal cost, is still right here, and this is the profit maximizing point, but that's not where price goes. Price goes higher, and it's over here. And so this would be the equilibrium point for this monopoly graph. And we can see that in a perfectly competitive market with no monopoly, that this would be the equilibrium point. And so what's the reason that we see this discrepancy between what we see in perfect competition versus monopoly market structure? And the reason for that is simply because of this downward sloping marginal revenue curve that is more steeply sloped than the demand curve. That usually we would assume that demand is equal to marginal revenue in a perfectly competitive firm, but because it's a monopoly, we actually don't see that being the case. And the reason for this separation of these two curves is because in order for, as the problem stem explains, in order for a monopolist to produce more goods, to sell more goods, it has to decrease price on all units that it sells, not just the most recent unit, right? It's not able to completely price. It's a non-discriminating monopolist. It can't price discriminate. So if you used to sell a good for $10 and you sold one good, and then you want to sell two goods, and you have to decrease the price in order to do that, then you sell both of those goods at $9 now, right? So what's the marginal revenue there? Well, in the first case, you made you sold one unit for $10, so you made $10. In the second unit, you sold two units for $9 or $18. So selling the second unit added $8 to your revenue, and it didn't add $9. Right? It didn't add the full price of one good. And that's because you lost the revenue you would have made for the previous good. And so that explains this downward sloping marginal revenue curve, which is more steep than the actual demand curve. So let's take a look at the answer choices and see which one of those fits our expectations here. And answer choice 3 says marginal revenue is less than average revenue. And so that's going to be the kind of explanation for why we see this being the case. And then the previous tutor says, since marginal revenue is the marginal increase in total revenue, if P decreases and Q increases, the change is small. Average revenue is always greater than marginal revenue since it is spread over all numbers of output. The marginal revenue and average revenue curves are always down sloping, showing that for greater output, the price needs to be decreased. The answer is this third option. The non-discriminating pure monopolist must decrease price on all units of products sold in order to sell more units. This explains why marginal revenue is less than average revenue, right? And so this is a good answer here. Next question says,